is a really sharp distinction or difference within, I would say, maybe the conservative movement or the populist movement, America First, if you want to call it that. How much of a sharp point has this situation with Iran and the American strikes on Iran put on those divides?
It's like getting to the biggest stress test between the two like poles of the MAGA movement and like taking over the American right. Like you have the populists who back Trump, who were the motivating energy behind Trump getting into office, who pose a strong counterpoint to the pre-existing Republican establishment, which included the neocons, pro-Israel people who all wanted to I guess, flex their power in the Middle East, primarily through military means. And the populist movement was always considering, the populist movement always saw the Middle East as a quagmire that foolhardy elitist leaders brought the country into. At this point, like, this is the biggest, this is exactly what they never wanted. They did not want the military back in the Middle East. They celebrated Joe Biden pulling it out of Afghanistan, even though that country fell into the hands of the Taliban quite quickly. They're like, oh yeah, it's great. We're out of there. We got out of this decision. And then Trump just pivoted to the exact opposite. Like, that's one thing they're very consistent on. Even if they back Donald Trump to almost the edge of the earth, this is their final stop. This is where they think it's too far.
And it's interesting to that point, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I think, well, I mean, I've been critical of her. A lot of people who aren't exactly cast from the exact same ideological cloth as she is have been critical of her in lots of different ways. But so far, at least, on this topic, she seems to have remained consistent with what she espouses as her principle, which is that certainly in general, the US shouldn't get involved in these wars. And specifically in this case, she thinks of it, I think, as the US getting involved in a conflict at the behest of Israel. So she is sticking with that, even though she's very loyal to Trump in other respects, right?
Yeah, that also goes back to a long-standing right that he has, I guess, against, let's put it in a very delicate manner, Jewish American interest in foreign policy. If you go back far enough in her, I guess, history of public statements, she's always criticized a very sartorial view of how the Jewish interests play out in America. But one of those avenues has always been like war, support of the Stalinism, and seeing Trump go to this extreme in order to advance the state of Israel's interests, like, walks into a very sensitive area for her. Like, this is exactly the nightmare scenario she never wanted.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, you were talking about the importance of restraint as you see it, and I'm not casting you in the same light as Marjorie Taylor Greene by any stretch of the imagination. But do you fear now there are going to be further escalations? I mean, perhaps these Iranian strikes, if they haven't done any fatal damage, perhaps there could be an off-ramp here. But how acute are your worries that there isn't going to be an off-ramp and the US is going to get enmeshed further in a Middle East conflict?
No, I think there's an absolute concern on both the left and the right. I don't think it's a surprise that you do see Marjorie Taylor Greene espousing the views of restraint on this issue or any foreign wars. I mean, she comes from a part of the base that really believed, as Tina pointed out, that Trump was serving as a different voice when it came to interventions, military interventions abroad. He promised the American people he wanted no more foreign wars. He did not want to be the policeman of the globe. He really wanted to adhere to this principle that we are not going to put our men and women in harm's way for other countries' problems and wars and entanglements. And she is coming out very strong and showing the base that, hey, we have a principle, we're going to stick with it. I come from the Quincy Institute was started in 2020 as an institution of scholarly advocacy, journalism, to really challenge the deep state, the law, the foreign policy establishment in Washington. And what we're doing is we're harnessing a lot of that energy on the right because it really does share common ground with the left in terms of their skepticism for intervention and really just sort of eschewing the policies that got us into the last Middle East war. And I think we share, both left and right, this real fear that Trump's actions on Saturday night, attacking Iran, attacking its nuclear facilities, is going to lurch us into another forever war. It's not a one and done, as he suggested on Saturday that we obliterated that nuclear program and then we're done and we can have peace now. I mean, people do have memories back to 2003 all the way up to 2020. When the Afghanistan war finally ended, that these things just don't they don't proceed the way we want them to. And bombing a country and then just getting out is a fantasy. There will be repercussions. There'll be political and economic impacts, as you're seeing today. And I think this is shared by the American people. It's not just Washington think tanks that feel this way. It's the American people are tired of war.
Tina, you are nodding your head to at least some of that. What was it about what Kelly said that really resonated with you or that you found yourself in agreement with?
Well, she was talking about the idea that the operation that Trump's going, when she's talking about the assumption that Trump must be going under in order to justify bombing Iran, where you fly into the country, hit a bunch of nuclear targets, get out, everything's done, congratulations. Like, that is where Donald Trump's ego has come into play over any sort of ideological promise or alignment that he's made with anyone. Like, this is a moment where Trump goes, oh man, I am so strong, I am so powerful. That deep instinct that we've all kind of seen buried underneath him for the past 8 years is finally coming out to play, and no one can stop him. And this is the first time I think that Congress has really reckoned with the fact that there are times where they can't talk him out of doing this. And even if they try, this is something they can't reverse. You can't undo bombing an enemy of the American people and of the United States of America. That's not something people are going to roll over. I think earlier this morning, Trump tweeted out something along the lines of, everyone needs to stop buying oil, even other countries. We know what Iran is doing by raising oil prices. Hold strong. No one is going to do that. Absolutely no one is going to think, yes, I will do what Trump is saying by not buying oil. This is a power far beyond his own ego, but this is a thing he's done because.
And to that point, Tina, I mean, I think that's a really an interesting point you raise about his ego and his self-image, which seems to be often very sort of super aggressive, super belligerent, whatever you want to call it. And it strikes me that his base actually loves that when it comes to domestic or so-called culture war issues, right? So when he's beating his chest and threatening to sue media organizations or crack down on colleges or fight what he would see as the good fight against so-called wokeness, his base loves that. But your suggestion is that in foreign policy, they don't at all love where it has led in this particular instance, right?
Right. Like, the idea of America first is focused on America. The rest of the world can do whatever it is they want unless it impacts America directly. And this is a totally different scenario than what they ever really grappled, than what they ever thought Trump would dabble in. If Iran had bombed the United States or targeted the United States militarily, I think you would see the MAGA base being more open to bombing Iran or whatever sort of military retaliation Trump might want to take. This was a war that the United States was not involved in. This was a war the United States